everyone, it's Gina from orchidandopal.com, and I am back with another tutorial from the Ethereal Opal collection that I curated with Eureka Crystal beads. That collection may be sold out by now, but you can find everything you need to make this particular bracelet on their site by picking these items up separately, and I'll have everything listed and linked right down below the video, as well as provide you with the quantities that you'll need of everything. As a brief rundown though, we'll be encasing a 10 by 14 millimeter oval crystal stone with 2-hole Ginko beads, 6 millimeter bicones, 3 by 2 millimeter crystal rondelles, some 8/0 Toho DEMI round seed beads, some Miyuki DELICAs, and I'll be finishing off each side of the bracelet with a wire guard, and I'll be using a toggle clasp with a couple of jump rings at the end. For my beading thread today, I'll be using the 6-pound test Fireline and a size 11 beading needle. And besides that, you'll just need some scissors and of course your jewelry pliers, perhaps a bead mat, all the basics. And once you thread your needle with a comfortable length of beading thread, we can go ahead and jump into this tutorial. And we're going to get started today with our Ginko beads and our delicas, and it may help you to start out by laying out 2 of your Ginkos in this orientation at the bottom and then 2 Ginkos in this orientation at the top. We're going to be stringing these on together first, so we're going to go through with our beading needle just like that and pick up these 2 Ginkos, and you can go ahead and pull them down. And you can leave yourself a 5 or 6 inch tail thread, something you can weave back in later. And in between our 2 groups of Ginkos to get started, we're going to pick up 11 of our DELICA beads. And you can pull those down. And then we're going to sew up through both of these Ginkos in this manner. So up through the right hand hole of the first one and up through the left hand hole of the next one, just like that. And just go ahead and pull these down. And these will flip around on you, and that's okay. You'll just flip them back over so they are going to sit like this eventually. And the next step is to pick up 3 more DELICA beads. Pull those down. And then sew down the open hole of the Ginko, the same one that you're currently coming out of. And now you've got these 3 that are surrounding the top of that Ginko bead. And we want to add another one in at the same level as this one. So it's going to sit just like that. And that means we're going to go down through this left-hand side with the round part facing up. And just pull that up towards your beadwork. And then we'll pick up another 11 DELICA beads. You can go ahead and pull those towards your beadwork. And then we're going to be adding on another Ginko that's going to sit right there. So we're going to go down through the left side, this time with the rounded part on the bottom, and we're going to sew through the next Ginko bead. And you're welcome to use a stop bead if you'd like to. That all depends on your personal preference, and I meant to say that at the beginning. I'm just not really used to using one personally. I just hold the beads in place and tighten as I go. But please do use one if you feel more comfortable. Next, you're going to pick up 3 more delicas, and you're going to sew up through those 2 Ginkos, just like that, with the holes that line up. And now we've got something that is symmetrical. They're both the same on either side. And now, go ahead and sew through those next 11 delicas that are already in place. Then pick up 3 more delicas. And this time, sew down through the next 11 DELICA beads. Make sure you don't miss any. Then pick up 3 more DELICAs and sew through the next 7 DELICAs on this side. Come out through the 7th one right there. Then pick up 4 DELICAs and sew through the central 3 DELICAs in this section of 11. So that's going to be these 3 right here. There's going to be 4 on either side. When we pull that, the 4 that we just added get placed right there, and we're going to pick up another 4 and then sew through the central 3 DELICAs in our next section. And we're coming out of that 7th bead again. We pull that, and here we go. This is going to be the base for our crystal. And let's strengthen this up a little bit more by sewing through that central ring of DELICA beads one more time. So I'm going to go back through these 4 at the top, through the 3 on the side, back through these 4. And then I'm going to sew up through those 3 and then continue through one more. So I'm coming out of the 8th DELICA on this side. And then next we're going to pick up 7 DELICAs. And then identify the 3 DELICA beads that were at the top, these 3 right in the center of those ginkgos. Go through the very center DELICA bead, just that one. Pull these beads into place. Pick up 7 more DELICAs. Pull those down. And then on that next side of 11 DELICAs, you'll be sewing through beads number 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So let's sew through those. Coming out of the one that's right after that center section. And we want to add the same thing to the other side, picking up 7 of our DELICAs again. And then sewing through the central DELICA bead right there in that section of 3 underneath the ginkgos. We'll pick up 7 more DELICAs. Turn that a little bit. And then we'll sew through DELICAs 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 on this side to get those 7 in place. And now you should have something that looks like this. Now my thread's coming out of this DELICA right here, and I want to sew up through the first 4 in that new section that we had just added. Then pick up 5 more DELICAs. And sew through the 4th one in this next section, which is the center bead in that section of 7. So you should have something like this now. It's starting to gather this side together. We're just continuing to create that little bezel for our stone that we're going to put in soon at the center of our bracelet. And now we want to pick up 7 more DELICAs. Sew through the 4th Delica bead in the next section on the other corner. And we'll do what we did again before, pick up 5 Delicas. Then sew through the 4th or the central Delica bead in the next corner. I'm going to turn this again. And then we'll pick up 7 more Delica beads. And now sew through that 4th Delica again to complete this setup. And you can continue sewing around those Delica beads again, just don't tighten it up yet. Now you can see we've got this encasement for our stone, and we can go ahead and put that in. We'll insert that face up. And now we can begin tightening the section around the stone to keep it in place. So let's continue by sewing through those next 7 Delicas plus the one on the corner. Start to pull that around the stone so it's tight. Then sew through the next 5. Turn again. Sew through the one on the corner. And then through the next 7. And the one on the other corner. Then sew through the next 5 and the one on the corner again. And now just sew through the ring of Delicas again one more time and skip the ones in each corner. So just go through your group of 7 and then the group of 5 and then the group of 7 and then the next group of 5. Again, just skipping the ones on the corners this time. And now you have this encasement and your stone should be fairly secure at this point. And we're going to follow our thread path. I'm going to continue down these 3 Delica beads, then through the one in the center, then through the one on the left, and I'm going to exit through the ginkgo that's on the left, going through that, what I'll call the inner hole, or the one that's closer to the center. And I'm going to turn this just so it's easier for me to work. And at this point, we're going to pick up 3 Delicas and sew down through the same ginkgo. Just go through the outer open hole to place 3 Delicas on the top of that one. And you can pull in some of your 6mm bicones, your DEMI rounds, and your rondelles at this point, because right now we're going to pick up a DEMI, a rondelle, a Delica, a bicone, a Delica, a rondelle, and a DEMI. So have this sequence on your beading needle, and then sew straight through the outer hole of the ginkgo on the other side, directly across, and pull that into place. Next, you can pick up 3 Delica beads, and we're going to add 3 on top of the round portion of this ginkgo. So just go through that one. And then follow your thread path through those 3 Delica beads that take you to the inner hole of the ginkgo on the left-hand side. And I'm going to turn this again, just move my working thread out of the way. And you can sew in that working thread at any point, by the way, just to move it. I'll do that soon so I don't have to worry about it. And now we want to do pretty much the same thing, which is pick up 3 of our DELICA beads and sew back through the open hole of the same Ginko. And fill in this side just like we did before with a DEMI, a Rondelle, a DELICA, a Bicone, a DELICA, a Rondelle, and a DEMI, and sew up through the Ginko on the other side. Then pick up 3 of your DELICAs once again and sew back down through the inner hole of the same Ginko that you're currently exiting and pull this together nice and tight. With my thread now coming out of this Ginko, I'm going to continue through those DELICA beads diagonally heading toward the top of the piece, and I'm going to come out of the DELICA that is at this top left corner. Then we'll pick up a DELICA, a Rondelle, and a DELICA bead and sew directly through the Bicone. I'm going to turn this a little bit now and do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to pick up a DELICA, a Rondelle, and a DELICA, and then sew through the next DELICA on the other corner. And now pick up a DEMI, DELICA, DEMI, Rondelle, DEMI, DELICA, and DEMI, and head down through the next corner DELICA. I'm going to turn this again, and we're going to make the other side symmetrical. So we're going to pick up a DELICA, a Rondelle, and a DELICA, and then sew through that Bicone on the other side. Then pick up a DELICA, a Rondelle, and a DELICA, sew up through the next corner. And again, to make this symmetrical, we're going to pick up a DEMI, DELICA, DEMI, Rondelle, DEMI, DELICA, DEMI, and sew through the DELICA on the other corner. And this is what you should have so far. And now with my thread coming out of this DELICA on the corner, we can just head down through the next DELICA, Rondelle, and DELICA, and then proceed up through the next Bicone, DELICA, Rondelle, and DEMI, come out of the DEMI bead. Now pick up 4 more DELICAs, and sew through the 3 DELICAs that are at the top of that next Ginko. So we've wrapped some DELICAs in place around that entire bead. Then pick up 3 of your DELICA beads and sew through that Rondelle that's at the top. Just framing this out a little bit. Pick up 3 more DELICA beads and then sew through the next group of 3 on the other Ginko. I'm going to turn this again. Pick up 4 DELICAs and then sew through the DEMI, the Rondelle, the Bicone, and also sew through the next DELICA, Rondelle, and DEMI. So you went through that whole strip of beads on the side. Now we're going to pretty much do the same thing on this side to make it look like this one, where we're going to pick up 4 of our DELICAs, sew through the 3, pick up 3, sew through the rondelle only. Pick up 3 delicas and sew through those 3 delicas on the other ginkgo. Gonna turn that. And then pick up 4 delicas and sew through this side. You can continue sewing up these delica beads that are around the ginkgo and go through all the ones that are at the top of that one, but don't go through those next 3 down there. And then you can pick up a DEMI, a rondelle, and a DEMI and sew around the 3 delicas at the top. Pick up another DEMI, rondelle, and DEMI, and then sew around all of these delicas on the other side of the ginkgo. Continue sewing through all the beads on the side, and continue sewing through all of those delicas that are around this ginkgo. And we'll match what we did before on the other side by picking up a DEMI, a rondelle, and a DEMI. We'll sew through those 3 delicas at the top. And we'll pick up another DEMI, rondelle, and DEMI. And now sew through all of these delicas around this ginkgo. And continue sewing through all the beads on the side again. Until you come up out of the DEMI, rondelle, and DEMI. Then pick up 5 delicas. Sew down through the next DEMI, rondelle, and DEMI. And continue sewing through these beads until you get to the other side. All the way around again. Around the delicas. And exit from the DEMI, rondelle, DEMI on this side, where you'll then pick up 5 more delica beads. And sew down through that DEMI, rondelle, and DEMI. And now your beadwork should look something like this. At this point, I am going to weave in and knot off my tail thread and my working thread, and I'm going to come back with a new piece of thread with a needle on either side, and we'll begin working on the side of our bracelet. And welcome back. With a new piece of beading thread and a needle on either side, we'll complete one side of the bracelet together and the other side will be identical, so you can just back up the video if you need to complete the other side. And what we're going to do is we're going to take one side of our thread and just sew through the first 2 delica beads in that group of 5, skip the middle one, and then go through the 4th and 5th. And then put your needles together and pull so that that ends up sitting at the center of your beading thread. And just take a moment to get yourself situated so you have your left needle on your left-hand side, your right on the right. And on both sides, we're going to pick up the same thing. a bicone, a demi, a rondelle, and then we're going to go up through 2 Ginko beads that are going to sit just like this. So we're going to go up through them in this manner. So we'll have one open hole on the right and one open hole on the left. Just go ahead and pull that down. And then you want to do the same thing on the other side. Pick up your bicone, your demi, your rondelle, and this time we're going to pick up one Ginko that's going to sit right there, and we're going to go up through these 2 holes and bring that together. So go ahead and pull. And then next on both sides, you're going to pick up a rondelle, a demi, a bicone, a demi, and a rondelle. And then you're going to have your Ginkgos placed once again, just like you did before, like that, and you're going to go up these 2 holes. So they'll sit just like that. Pull this down. And then repeat on the other side. Pick up your rondelle, your demi, a bicone, a demi, and a rondelle. We'll need one more Ginko that's going to sit right there. And then you'll go up through these 2 holes. And they'll connect again at that Ginko, with one going through either side. We're going to do this again. Pick up a rondelle, a demi, a bicone, a demi, a rondelle, and then place your next 2 Ginkgos just like this and sew up both of those in this manner and pull that down. Then on your other side, pick up your rondelle, your demi, a bicone, a demi, a rondelle. Place your next Ginko bead right there and sew up through those 2. And pull this all together. And now you have something like this. And by the way, this is if you want to stop at this particular length for your bracelet. That's going to end up being just a little over 7 inches, including the clasp, but feel free to add on if you need to, or also make it shorter, just depending on what length you want. But now on the right, I'm going to take my needle and pick up 3 DELICA beads, just like that. And then I'm going to take the needle on my left and I'm going to cross through those 3 DELICA beads in this manner, and our needles are now going to switch places. And now with the right hand needle, we're going to pick up a DELICA bead, a demi, a rondelle, and another DELICA bead. Then you want to sew down through the open hole of the Ginko that's on the right that you get to next. Then pick up a rondelle and a demi and 5 of your DELICA beads. And then sew through the demi and the rondelle that come after the bicone on that side. Now pick up 3 more DELICA beads and sew down through the open hole of the next Ginko. And we'll repeat this on the other side. So once again, we'll pick up a DELICA, a demi, a rondelle, and a DELICA. And we'll sew down through the open hole of the Ginko on the left. Then we'll pick up a rondelle, a demi, and 5 DELICA beads. And we'll sew through the DEMI and the Rondelle that come after that bicone on the left. Then we'll pick up 3 delicas and sew through the open hole of the next Ginko bead on the left. And we're going to repeat this pattern again down the rest of both sides of the bracelet. And since you've seen me do that on 2 sides now, I'm just going to speed up the video and meet you back in regular time once the rest of the outside is done. And welcome back. And I actually went through the next demis on either side here as well. So go through those and then take a moment to get your threads situated once again. And now I'm going to go down through those 3 delicas on the right hand side, cross through the rondelle, sew up through the next 3 delicas, sew up through the next demi, rondelle, and demi, and then in that group of 5 delica beads there, I'm going to sew through the first 2. Skip the one in the middle and then sew through the next 2. Then pick up 1 more delica and sew through the next 5 delicas. As well as the demi and the rondelle. You can go ahead and sew through all of these beads 1 more time along the outside of the piece, and that's where we can attach our wire guard. And this will also reinforce the side. So just follow your thread path, keep going up through the delica beads and the other beads that are around the outside of the piece. And then exit out of the delica bead at the top center. And now do the same thing on the other side with your left hand needle, where you're going to sew down through those next 3 delicas on this side and cross through the rondelle. Sew up through the next 3 delica beads. Go up through the demi, the crystal rondelle, and the demi. Sew through the first 2 delica beads, then skip the one in the center. And sew down through the next 2. Then pick up 1 delica bead and continue sewing through all the beads on the left-hand side this time. And continue sewing through the beads and exit through the one at the top center, just like you are with your other threads, so you have 1 thread coming out of each. At this point, you can simply attach a wire guard by picking up a rondelle, a delica, and then going through the wire guard. We'll go around that. And to match the other side, pick up a delica and a rondelle. And then cross through the delica that's at the top. You bring that all together, and that is what you have, and you can take your other needle and sew through all of those beads and the wire guard also to reinforce that section. And finally cross through that DELICA bead again. And you can continue sewing around your piece. If you have enough thread, you are free to use your thread to continue to make the other side of your bracelet, just like we did on this side. It's going to be identical. Or you can start with a brand new piece of thread like we did before and follow the same steps to complete the other side of your bracelet. Keep doing that and complete your other side, and then we'll meet back and admire our work. And here is the completed bracelet, the second one in fact. The one I just did made with DELICA beads that are just slightly lighter than the other ones. And once I completed the other side, I simply wove in and knotted off both of those threads that we were using and attached our toggle clasp with a couple of jump rings. So I want to thank you so much for joining me for another tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to give the video a big thumbs up. Also subscribe while you're here and share the video wherever you like. You can also leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you plan to give this a try or maybe if you've made one. I always love to hear from you. And as a reminder, all of the materials are listed and linked right down below the video. You can find everything at Eureka Crystal Beads, and I've listed the quantities that you'll need also. That's all I have for now. Until next time, I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. And as always, happy beading.